Hello and welcome everybody to my YouTube channel Enoka TV. Today is my first cast and I would like to show you some deck guide to create a proper NATO deck today for my first cast. Okay, let's start. Let's create a deck. You can see I have a couple of decks for several situations, for several game modes, for several maps and stuff. You should always basically you can use one deck for ranked games, like 1v1 decks, which are general usable, but you can do some extra edits to your decks for special maps. Like I have a special deck for Folder Gap or for Rivers of Blood. These decks were created for the Wargame Cup, where I had a lot of thoughts how I will play, how I will place my units, what units will I use and stuff. So basically, I will show you to create general usable one versus one deck today for maybe ranked games. Okay, let's create a new deck. Okay, so at the moment my game is in German. I will try to change the language to English for the cast in the future, but I think you will get what I do anyway because the interface wouldn't be too different in English or your own language. Okay, let's start with the logistics section. All right, what do you put in the logistics section? Generally, in 1v1s, you don't need that much commands, but you need more than two. That's I think that's clear. So we have, for instance, the Sultan. Many players like the Sultan because it's pretty fast. It drives 80 kilometers per hour, but I don't use it because the range is not really good and the armor is not so good. So we have, in my opinion, we have better choices for the NATO side. Let me see. The M114MA1, the American command, is pretty good. You can build four of them. It's the only NATO Xiwi which is available in a quantity of four, but the armoring is similar to the Sultan, so I don't use it in 1v1s. I use it in multiplayer games because of the quantity. You can build four, so you can have 4 or 6 CVs in your deck with only 2 slots, which is kind of good, but you don't need it for 1v1s. You have better choices, in my opinion. So let's see. I basically use this CV because it's the best armored CV in the game. Its speed is okay, the range is pretty good, and yeah, the price is normal. So I basically use this command, and of course I need more than two, and of course I don't use the default command because it has no armor, this Jeep. So I use the German variant of this one, it's the same. So I use this two kind of commands. Okay, next thing, for supply. I think taking the helmet shouldn't be a question because it's pretty fast CW, which good capacity of fuel, and the costs are normal. I think it's the best NATO supply vehicle. Problem is you only can take 8 of them with you. So my choice in this case is to take the Jupiter. So the Jupiter, you can take 16 of them. So it's basically the same amount like the Hammett again, but indeed not that well armored and a little bit slower. But basically it's the same like the Hammett because it has half of the fuel capacity, half of the price, but twice of the available quantity. So I think it's pretty okay either. Helicopters, I don't use supply helicopters in 1v1s. This is a couple of reasons. In 1v1 ranked, you will try to save as much points as possible. You don't want to give the enemy points unnecessary. So these helicopters are expensive. They are easily killed by artillery or enemy anti-air. So I don't really like them. Some people say it's important to have helicopters to fastly supply your troops on the front, but I think it's the reason why you should not use the helicopters, because on the front you always are vulnerable, and the helicopters in this case um, are pretty much in danger when they come to the front to supply, because the enemy, when he got good micro, he can just explicitly aim with the anti-air at them and stuff. So I don't really use the helicopters. In team games, it's another thing, but in 1v1 games, I think you don't need it. So the VIB PC, I just wanted to talk about this command. It's for some cases it's a good choice because it's really fast with 90 kilometers per hour. It has the Browning MG, which actually can stun some air units when they are near. But again, the armor is not strong enough for me, so I prefer the highest armored command vehicles in the game. These two, it's basically the same, but the one is the German and the other one is the American variant of this. Okay, let's go to the recon area. Recon. So you need an recon helicopter. Not all players use it, but I think it's one of the most important things to have in the early game, especially because you can see pretty early if your enemy is heli rushing or ground rushing and react properly to this, to your new information which you get from the recon. So we have at least, basically we have only two choices here. The Gazelle in the first variant for 80 points is pretty good. It's really fast with 350 kilometers per hour. The range is okay, and yeah, I think it's a pretty good recon helicopter. On the other side we have the Kiowa. The Kiowa is only viable, I think it's my opinion, only viable in the second variant. Some players like Firestarter prefer this helicopter because it has some weapons and it has the possibility to defend itself. It's 70 kilometers per hour slower, so that's basically why I don't really like it so much. And it costs 15 points more, but you have a Browning MG and some rockets. The rockets are not really usable because it's only 7 of them, and yeah, I don't think they can change that much if they get used. The Browning MG is basically a cool thing, but I prefer using a Gazelle with some Gazelle cannon helicopters as escort helicopters. So I will add the Gazelle. So we truly need some ground recon either. There are a couple of choices. My choice in this case is the Mud Jeep. The Mud Jeep is pretty cheap for 30 points. It's fast, it has a really good range. It's small, so it can't be spotted too easy. And his optics are very good. So I will add the Mud, but I would like to say something about the other ones either. The Bradley. So we can see the Bradley for 75 points and the Bradley for 80 points. Sorry. The Bradley for 80 points is the one you should prefer because it has an accuracy of 10 where with this ATGM rocket, the ITO, which has a really good anti-tank capacity, and the autocannon of course is pretty good either. The armor is okay, but yeah. You have to know the Bradley can be a really cool thing, but you really have to care, you have to babysit this one. And recon usually, I don't know. It's not my style of play because I play more offensively and I need recon more on my flanks where I don't have that much to defend it. And yeah, a Mud Jeep can be killed, but a Bradley is a big thing when you lose it. So I don't really like to use it, especially in 101, but if you have a good micro, if you can take care of it, you can use it, of course. So another good recon vehicle is the Spare Panzer Lux, or the Spare Panzer Lux A1. Has a pretty good autocannon, I think the same like the Martyrs and the Weasels, so pretty good autocannon. The speed is pretty good, the range is pretty good, and in the A1 variant you have a pretty good optics either. So again, you need a good micro, you need to take care of this. When you're able to do this, it's pretty cool. Where if you're not able to take care of it, you should take a Mud Jeep because yeah, it has the same optics, which is the most important thing for a recon vehicle, and yeah, it's small, it can't be spotted that easy, it's fast, has a good range, so this is my choice here. Okay, this is all for my troops in the recon section. So let's go over to tanks. Okay, at the tanks, I will say a little bit to the most of them. Okay, the AMX-30 series. These are medium tanks which are, in my opinion, pretty good. I mostly like the AMX-30B Well Rise. I don't know if if I pronounce it correctly. I don't speak French, unfortunately, but you may can correct me. Okay, let's see. The pro on the MX-30 series is they got a decent cannon. It's pretty good. The range is good, the accuracy is good, the PB power, AT power is pretty good. They have an autocannon, which is really good against air, so you can micro the main cannon off or the autocannon off and on, so you can play against some infantry units more effectively or against air more effectively. It's pretty interesting. The autocannon and the main cannon are pretty good at these tanks. Next thing is they are pretty fast with 70 kilometers per hour for a medium tank. This is pretty good. Let's compare it like to the Patton, Rice Patton. It has 60 kilometers per hour. And yeah, I think the Rice Patton costs 40, the AMX Valkyries cost 50. Let's compare it to the A3 Patton maybe. Yeah, it's faster, definitely. Not that much, but it is. The next pro of the AMX-30 series is of course the range. They can go 600 kilometers, which is pretty wide for a medium tank. So you can really play offensively with them. You have anti-air capacities, you are fast, you have a good range. The contra of these tanks is the armor. It's not that good. So let's compare it. For instance, here this 3211 armor with the Rice Pattern, which is a little bit cheaper. It has the same armor, but it's cheaper. The A3 pattern is even better armored, but it's a little bit more expensive. So I really like this AMX-30B tanks. It's my choice in my deck. Okay. The AMX-32 tanks. It's like an hybrid between a medium and a heavy tank. The armor is not really good for 80 points. Yeah, that's definitely a fact. The speed and the range on the other side is pretty good for a heavy tank, and I think so is the optics. The optics are normal, and you can't expect this in every heavy tank. Like the Leopard 2A4 has normal, but the 2A1 and the 2 has poor, and same for the Abrams. Only the latest series are have the normal optics. So this is pretty good for that price and this cannon. So the main cannon of the AMX-32 is pretty strong for the price of 80. Let's compare it, for instance, with the Leopard 2A4. It has a firing range of 2275. So has the Leopard 2A4. And the accuracy with 10 is exceptional, like the Leopard 2A4. And even the AT power is almost the same. It's only 1 point less, but it costs like 65 points less, like the Leopard. The armor is the main contra of this tank, definitely. So you have to take care of it, but it is not that expensive like in Leopard 2A4. So yeah, it might be the better choice than one of the real heavy tanks. If you take care of it, if you have a good micro, you can do almost the same damage for a way lower price. So you can think about it. I don't use them. I have other tanks I prefer. I will show you soon. Okay, I have to drink something. Give me a second. The Challenger 1. Let's see. The Challenger 1 has a decent cannon either. It's a little bit weaker than the MX-32, but you have to have a look at the stabilization, of course. The stabilization of the MX-32 is normal. That's not really good. I forgot this fact. Sorry, excuse me. So, the Challenger is said to be the best heavy tank in this current meta. This has a reason. The armor is the strongest. It has 10.833, and yeah, this is pretty strong. The speed is poorly with 45 kilometers per hour. Compare it to the Leopard 2A4. It has 10 front armor, but only 5 side armor. The Challenger has 8. So the Challenger can survive an ATGM rocket in the side armor. And as you know, the side armor is more easily hit than you think. So the Challenger is definitely way more robust than a Leopard 2A4 because one Milan or Concours or T62M1 or whatever can one shot you 145 points worth unit, and that's not really cool. So the Challenger is a little bit more robust, but it's slow. So this is definitely a disadvantage. So you have to move it carefully every time. As every heavy tank, you have to take care of it, you have to babysit it because it's very expensive. It has a huge damage potential, but it only can use it when you use it properly, the unit. So you don't have to be too defensive, you don't have to be too offensive. It's not too easy. That's why I don't really like to play heavy tanks, only in very situational moments. But yeah, you have to try to figure it out for yourself. The Chieftain. I think the Chieftain is a little bit similar to the Challenger. I think the most played variant of this is the Chieftain Mark V. I think with this tank you have the highest price armor um, combination. So the best price armor combination. The cannon is okay, but not that good. Let's compare it to the MX-30B2. For the price of 55, it's the same price, and you have twice of the accuracy. A little less PB power, but in the end, the accuracy is pretty important for a heavy tank because of the 6 round per minute fire ratio. It has more fire ratio. So yeah, you always have to think about what's your playstyle, how you want to use these units, and so you have to compare the numbers and figure out which might be the best choice for yourself. Okay, the Leopard 1 is a variant I don't really want to talk about because I don't think it has the biggest. It's not really important in the current meta. It's not really played, and yeah, I don't think it's a good choice to play. We have another heavy tank which can be a good choice. It's the Abrams. The Abrams has a decent side armor either. It has an exceptional stabilization and a decent gun. So my choice is the Abrams. I like it. I prefer it the most because of the stabilization and the decent, better speed compared to the Challenger. The Leopard is just too vulnerable in the side armor, so I don't play it. I like this unit pretty much, but when you go for the effectivity, I think the Abrams is the best heavy tank in the current meta. It's my choice. As always, it depends on your style to play and stuff, but this is my choice. Okay. The Sheridans. I don't really think the Sheridans are that good either, so I don't have that much experience with them, so I don't wanna talk that much about them. The patterns are pretty good either. I think there's always you have to decide between the AMX30 series or the pattern series. The pattern series is playable and viable, definitely either. You have a little bit bigger choice of them. They all have have their pros and cons. You have to have to have a look at it. Okay, Starship is the same like the Sheridan. I don't have that much experience. I don't think they are that good. The ATGM rockets are not really good and stuff. If you wet them, they're too expensive. You know what I mean. Okay, the MBT-70. I played it for a long time as my heavy tank because of the ATGM rocket. But a friend of me told me once, it's a bit of time ago, that the MBT-7 is a unit which can everything but is not good in anything it does. So it has an autocannon, it has a main cannon, it has ATGM rockets, and that's basically true. The autocannon with 111 is almost useless compared to the AMX series, which has at least and an accuracy of 2, or yeah. So the ATGM rocket with an accuracy of 6, it's okay. It can be useful, but I think you will be better if you use um, other ATGM units combined with tanks and not use this hybrid, because this is more the Pact's job, the tanks of the Pact's job. I don't think that it's that good. You can play it, it's okay, but I don't play it anymore. Okay, let's go to the infantry section. Infantry is pretty interesting. You have 5 slots, and we all would love to have more than 5 slots at the infantry section, definitely. We have the choice between normal rifle infanterists. There are ones which are better against tanks. There are ones which are better against infantry. There are ATGM infantry squads. There are anti-air infantry squads. There's recon infantry. There's infantry which is good for an airdrop, like Delta forces. So we have to decide for 4 types of them. Okay, there's so many of infantry. I will only talk about what my choice is and why this is my choice. Okay, at first, the ATGM Milan F2. I think this is one of the best, when not the best, ATGM infantry in the game. We have an anti-tank power of 15. This is pretty strong. It can one-hit everything when it hits. It can one-hit in TADU in the front, no problem. It's perfect. The accuracy with 6 is okay, but you definitely have to buy it on veterancy level. And my choice for this is veterancy 3. So the unit costs 60 with the carrier. And yeah, I think it's definitely... you don't have to talk about if you should use ATGM infantry. I think it's a must-have. So I will take the ATGM Milan F2 squad. Okay. Next choice. We need some recon infantry. The German Fanspurs. They have very good optics, I think. They are, for me, they are the best recon infantry. They are very strong with a high explosive power of 3 against infantry. They don't have an anti-tank rocket, which is a little bit sad. The VPZU, for instance, are comparable. They have an anti-tank rocket, but they are pretty strong at all anyways. They have the Truppenpanzer Fuchs. It's 105 kilometers per hour fast, so the range is pretty good, so you can drive almost everywhere pretty fast. And the Fanspurs are my choice for recon ground infantry. Okay, so we definitely need something to fight in woods and buildings and stuff. There are so many choices. My choice for shock infantry, for infantry which can take out other infantry in woods or buildings pretty fast, are the chasseurs from us. They cost 20, which is a little bit expensive, but I think for the price you get a pretty good anti-infantry and even anti-tank squad for woods and cities. So chasseurs from us are my first choice, but in my opinion you definitely need 2 of them. The chasseurs from us, let me see, you can call 20 of them. This is not that much. On some maps where you need lots of infantry, like Rivers of Blood or Mecklenburg, I always get out of one of my infantry squads. I easily need 20 of them. So I need a second rifle infantry squad. My choice here is a little bit cheaper variant. It's the Fusiliers in the Saracen. They cost 15, are pretty good against infantry and tanks either, so for this price they are pretty cool, but the APC is not the best. You have not the best gun, it's only a 762mm MG, but yeah, it's better than nothing, definitely. Most contra on this is the range. You only have 400 kilometers range. In the VAB you have 1200 kilometers range. So the VABs are pretty good for sneaking attacks or attacks through woods where you stay unrecognized for the enemy and stuff, you know what I mean. So let me add the Fusiliers. These are my second choice of rifle infantries. Okay, that one you can decide. You either can take anti-air infantry with you. For instance, let me see. The blowpipes or the red eyes, or what do we have here? Let me see. Don't find them at the moment. Here. Okay, we get the LAAD blowpipes from the Britons. Yeah. On the pact side, I think a lot of pact players use this when they play NATO. On the pact side, we have, for instance, the Eagler infantry squad, which are pretty strong for the price of 25. So they are used to use cheap anti-air infantry. So yeah, they use them either when they play NATO. They can be pretty good even when the statistics don't really speak for them, but you can hide them in buildings, woods. You can spread them all over the map. They don't cost that much. And they can take down helicopters pretty effectively, definitely. Okay, you can use the red eye or the blowpipes here. I don't know. I think it's kind of preference how you like more. Just look at the statistics if you're interested in using them. Definitely. The ones that are cheaper, the ones that are a little bit better, but not that much. Okay. I don't use anti-air infantry in my 1v1 deck. I use some airdrop infantry. When you use airdrop infantry, you have to decide between two kinds on the NATO side. You can either use the Delta Force, which are pretty strong in sneaking attacks. Oh, these are the riflemans. Here we got the Delta Force. For instance, when you call the Delta Force and the Blackhawks, which can fly 350 kilometers per hour pretty fast, pretty wide. You have the Delta Force with really strong anti-tank capacities on 700 meters range and really strong anti-infantry capacities. So if you drop some Delta Forces near an enemy CV and he doesn't recognize them, you easily can take them down, or maybe the artillery or stuff. But in my opinion, that doesn't work that often against good players. And when I play ranked, I face good players. So it's not my choice. But they are indeed pretty good for a lot of things. They are weakened infantry. They have not the best. They have only good optics. But definitely, especially for the Carl Gustav anti-tank weapon, they are really viable to play. My choice here are the French 2E RIP and the Puma. They cost me 35 points. They have better optics than the Delta Force, the very good optics, but they don't really have that much fighting capacities. So when I use an airdrop, it's mainly for the recon, not for the fighting, because in my experience, it mostly does not work against good players. I prefer using like 4 VBs on the background and sneak around and then attack. I think this is more effective. This is just my experience. Everyone should do like he wants to. But yeah, I will choose the 2E Rep and the Puma. So we have our infantry section. Now we go to support. Okay. Yeah. Support. What do we need in the support section? Basically, anti-air is really important. The Chaparral is the only high-range anti-air unit here, anti-air rocket from the NATO side, so I think there is no question to use them. And often you need more than a Chaparral because it's pretty slow with 40 kilometers per hour. Often you need a little bit faster variant, so I used the Motorola 2. Either because it's better armored, it can stand more artillery fire or even helicopter rockets and stuff, you know what I mean? And it's faster. So this is more the front unit. This is more the unit which you take for an attack. So I use both definitely. Okay, next thing. You need artillery. We have a couple of artillery units here in the NATO side, but my choice, even for 1v1s, a lot of players prefer using, for instance, mortars, but I think the AMX of 1 is a pretty good tool you should use. It has, for an artillery, it has a pretty good armor, so it can stand against counter battering. In the most of the times it wins a counter battery battle against Danas because they are way weaker armored. They are pretty fast for their armor and weapon, so I think the AMX of 1 are pretty good. I take them in my 1v1 deck. Alright, we need some anti-air cannons. We have a couple of things here. We have, for instance, the Flakpanzer M42A1 from the Germans, which can be used at the G-part A1, which is definitely usable for attacks or rushes. But I prefer the Vulcan because of the fire ratio. The fire ratio is way better. I use the basic ones because their job is mainly to stun enemy helicopters, that they don't do damage until my anti-air rockets take them down. So I prefer the Vulcans more, even if they cost more. 10 points more than the Vulcans. So this is my choice. Alright. So, now it depends. In some games, I would take the MLRS, but basically the MLRS is not really usable for 1v1 games because it's expensive, it costs a lot of supply, and yeah, so I won't take it in my 1v1 deck now. Alright, let's see. Now we have the vehicle area here. I think this category is one of the most important for the NATO side, especially in my style of play, because we have some really strong tools here, like the Marder 1. The Marder 1 has a really strong autocannon, is really fast, good armored, has good range. It's a pretty good unit to do slow attacks, slow pushing, slow forward pushing, you know what I mean. So I definitely take the Marder 1. The Marder VTS 1 is pretty similar to the Marder 1. The difference is it has a decent cannon for the price of 20. The cannon is not the best, definitely, compared to a medium or heavy tank. But for this price and the quantity you can build them, the cannon is definitely good. The armor is good, the speed is good, the range is good. So I take the Marder VTS 1 either. Sometimes I buy them in wet 1. Sometimes I buy them unwetted. You have to decide when you buy them unwetted. You should only fire when they stand still. When you bought them on wet 1, you can fire while they drive, sometimes either. Okay. As the third vehicle, I use the Weasel. The Weasel has the same autocannon like the Marder. Only difference is that the ammunition is lower, and yeah, the armor and the range are way above the Marder 1. But the price is even above. So the Weasel are pretty good for defense, or if you care for the supply of them, even good for cheap offense, which is not worth that much. So I love the Weasels, I will take them either. Okay, what do we use now? As I said, I won't take the MLRS with me. Let me see. Did I? Yes, I did. Okay, I don't usually take the MLRS with me because in the 1v1s, because you can't use them that much than you can use other units. Okay, so that's why I will have to go back to the support units. I will add this mortar tanks. The M106A2, I use this variant. In 1v1s, I prefer them over the MLRS, and it's situational. Sometimes I like the AMX of 1 more, or I can use them more on bigger maps, or on some maps the mortars are my choice. It depends. Okay, let's go back to the vehicle section. We need some ATGM definitely here. My choice here is this tow jeep. The tow jeeps, I usually take them earlier. I used to take them in the ITOW variant because the ITOW rocket is pretty accurate, has a good TPB AT power and stuff. But they are, for me, something like an additional ATGM power. I heavily use ATGM infantry. I use them even for pushes. I unload them, shoot, reload, drive farther, and you know. But the tow jeeps are pretty useful too for some rushes or for some defense scenarios. I buy them unwetted and in the basic variant. They have an accuracy of 8, an AT power of 12 for $20. It's pretty good. So I take them with me either. Okay, we have 3 deck slots left and 1 slot in the vehicle section and some for the helicopters. Let's see. So this is kind of situational either. I like the Mephisto. I use them pretty often, but it's situational. We have other good units, like the Zippo. In the current meta, it's getting more popular and more popular to rush. We have the Wargame Cup running, and a lot of people win and kick out high-rated players with rushing and stuff. So I think maybe you should prepare for that. Even when you play ranked games, you see rushes everywhere in the current meta. So the flamethrowers are pretty good against rushes. And the first reason is, of course, they can take out infantry in seconds. The second reason is they are the best morale killers. They kill the morale of a whole blob of light vehicles, medium tanks and stuff that your other vehicles can take them down easily. So I will take the Zippo in this case. Okay, let's go to the helicopter section. We have the best helicopters on the NATO side. That's why we don't have the best air defense. The Pact has better air defense, but a little bit weaker helicopters. So we definitely should use this advantage. Here we have the AH-1S Cobra. This is a pretty good unit for early game and even late game defensive scenarios. I take it. It's a pretty useful unit, but you always have to be careful how you use it. I think you might have seen the cast which No Destiny did with me if you're German, so you could have seen a replay there where I lost a lot of them. Pretty unnecessary. So as my second choice in the helicopter section, I used the Gazelle cannons. They are pretty cheap and have a decent autocannon, so they are pretty fast. They're pretty good for anti-air, hunting down enemy recon helicopters. They can defend pretty well, so they are pretty cool and I would like to use them. Okay, this is my 1v1 deck for the NATO side. If you have any suggestions, any questions, or any comments, just write in the comment area. I would love to read them. I will definitely answer. And yeah, I hope you could have learned. You learned something from my cast here today. It's my first one. I will do a couple of. I will do an packed deck guide in the next time either. And yeah, would be cool if you liked it. You can click the subscribe button. And yeah, hope I see you the next time. Bye.